This is Ghana Election Desk, and we are interacting with Professor Ransford Gyampo on Ghana's impending elections. Prof, um, COVID has set in, and it has changed how campaigning would have looked like traditionally. Do you think it has leveled the playing field for the other political parties?
Well, has it really changed anything? I can see people still going to a seeming rally, attending seeming rallies. I can see people on, on their cars, and people, supporters are always following them with no social distancing, with no protection, with no face masks and all that. People are I don't. Maybe the only thing that we haven't done is we have not witnessed is the mega rallies. But they stand on top of their cars, and people surround them, chanting them, spitting salivas on themselves and all that, as if there is no COVID and all that. So we've gotten used to COVID. I think the whole idea of we've in a way, in my view, we've been able to tame, quote unquote, COVID. Let's protect yourself, let me protect myself. We are free. See where you are sitting, I'm sitting. We are free. Let there be social distancing and all that. And the fact that we are now conscious. So we are washing our hands and sanitizing our hands frequently, and we are not touching our noses and mouths, as we used to, and all that. I think all these things are being helpful. And so I wouldn't be surprised if the mega rallies even begin in the lead up to the elections. And so for me, people are still campaigning anyway. But the most effective campaign is the ones that you do door to door, house to house. That's very effective. Sometimes rallies would not mean anything. Many rallies that have been organized since 1992 were attended by party faithfuls. And so it's an opportunity for them to go and keep fit. They go, they play their songs, and they dance, and they dance and do all manner of things. People who mount the platform on rallies, they don't say anything. They just go and arouse them. They just chant their party songs and say things that sometimes they themselves know that this one we are telling them just to arouse them. Rallies do not, in my view, once you are not appealing to the electoral kingmakers, it doesn't really add up much.
So you think moving forward, the approach, people should use the COVID approach, so to say, not using rallies, rather do the smaller grouping.
If we are able to tame COVID, if we're able to tame COVID, and because of that people want to hold rallies, so be it, because rallies also add to the excitement, of elections and all that. But I'm saying that it should be a blend. If because of COVID we would not be able to organize rallies, people should use the door-to-door, house-to-house, approach. And those who are standing on their cars, they should encourage their support bases to put on the nose masks and stop the needless exposure of themselves to the disease. I think it's not helpful.
The two major political parties have finally launched their manifestos. Which of these promises do you think is achievable or not?
Well, I don't want to go into their promises. You see, the manifestos that the two parties have launched identify symptoms of problems. I'm not interested in dealing with symptoms of problems. I'm interested in dealing with root causes of problems. The fundamental root cause of the problems of Ghana lie in its constitution, the 1992 constitution. If you solve the problems with the 1992 constitution, okay, 95% of the promises, okay, in the manifestos of the political parties will not be there. And so they will have a very thin manifesto. But the two, they are not interested in dealing. Well, you see, it's about governance. Governance simply means steering the affairs of a state. Okay. to be able to steer the affairs of a state, you need a fundamental law that guides you in what to do. Now, in preparation of this fundamental law, you take cognizance of all the challenges that were there around the time that you didn't have the state. Thomas Hobbes paints a certain state of nature that was so chaotic. Okay? Yeah. People, there was scarcity, there were economic challenges, life of man was nasty, brutish, and short, and all that. To be able to deal with the state problems of the state of nature, Hobbes advocated for a government or a certain ruler. Okay, Locke comes in to also talk about government, and he talks about the need for the government to be controlled or regulated by a constitution. Okay, now the constitution, like I said, is supposed to provide all the antidotes serve as the antidotes to all the challenges that we had in the state of nature. So my point is that you cannot prepare a constitution without having in mind the challenges that the constitution is supposed to deal with. The 1992 constitution in 2006, it was realized that even though it had served us well, way back in 2006, even though it had served us well, it nevertheless contained provisions that hinders our effort to develop. It nevertheless contains provisions that hinder the maturation of our democratization process. I've heard so many people saying that there is no national development plan. How can we develop? You see, there are provisions in the constitution that actually frustrate or prevent any effort at preparing a national plan. There's a provision, in fact, I wrote it the last time, that says that within 2 years of the coming into power of every administration, you must prepare your own development policy framework that talks about socio-economic and political well-being of the people and submit it to parliament within 2 years. So if I come to power today, I have to prepare it 2 years, send it to parliament. Tomorrow, if you to come, you have to do the same thing. So we can't. There's a provision in the constitution that says we should do this, and I'm saying this provision effectively would undermine any quest to have a national plan.
Do you think it's something which is not being done?
What?
The submission of the plan.
It is being done, but I'm saying when we talk about national development plan, you're talking about the long-term plan that is there so that we all would feed into. But I'm saying the constitution says that every 2 years you do yours. Me too, every 2 years I come out, do mine. And all. It's in the constitution. Okay, the constitution gives a lot of powers to the executive arm of government. Lord Acton says, power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And so once you have one person who assumes the role of a political king Kong, he can do everything. And some of these excesses are some of the things that have brought us to the situations, the situation in which we find ourselves today, for which matter a long manifesto or many manifesto promises are being made. And so my point is that, see, when we identified, you see, 2007, the same Ghana Political Parties program, they worked together, said we are auditing the gaps in Ghana's democracy. And that was when they came out with a finding that the constitution itself is a problem, and so let us amend it. We did a lot of work in this area, and then we sold the idea to Professor Mills. Okay. Professor Mills, in his first SONA, in his first State of the Nation address, said that because the political party leaders themselves have agreed that the constitution should be amended, I would pay heed to that. I will lead the process. So Professor Mills set up a constitutional review commission to oversee the process. The commission undertook extensive nationwide public consultation and research and came out with a document that they titled From a Political to a Development Constitution, i.e., if we implement that report, we will be talking about development. So they had that huge document that essentially called for a holistic overhaul of the 1992 Constitution. And the documentation that they had was as a result of the views of what Ghanaians, have said, as a result of what the people of Ghana have said. So they brought their report in 2012, I think the Constitutional Review Implementation Committee was set up, and somewhere along the line, the process, this was the first time our constitution on the average had lasted from independence up to now, up to 1992, had lasted for on the average 3 years. Then we'll throw it away. So we're having, for the first time, a constitution that had lasted for almost 20 years around the time. And so when we were talking about a need for review, I'm sure the various authorities or the various power brokers who had to play a role were not so sure. So there was a little miscommunication or misunderstanding of their roles between Parliament and Council of State, who will do what, and all that. But so the process got a bit stalled because of that little misunderstanding of who. But then we quickly were also ushered into the 2012 elections. Professor Mills died, and NDC had a new candidate, and then he had to campaign and all that. So the fact that there were some misunderstanding of rules, and then Professor Mills died, and then new campaign and all that, dwarfed the constitution review process.
So it died off.
Yeah, it died off. Then we held the 2012 elections. 8 months into the following year, 2013, it was election petition. Afterwards, the new government had to settle. Okay, the new government settled and all that. Somebody took the process of the constitutional review process, took a matter to court, arguing that the executive had no role. It was not the business of the executive to initiate the process in the first place. So they went to Supreme Court for interpretation. That also dragged a little. And then by the time the Supreme Court okayed that the processes could go on, we were ushered into the 2016 elections. Okay, we held the 2016 elections. The party that initiated the constitutional review process, they lost. Almost 4 years into the administration of the MPP, they have said nothing about the constitution review process.
Has anybody taken it up?
Well, I don't know. You are also a Ghanaian, but they've said nothing about the constitution review process. The process that we spent huge sums of money undertaking and all that, they've said nothing. I've argued that one day somebody must charge somebody for causing financial loss to the state among the MPP. But you see, I don't blame the MPP that much. Maybe they are following the disingenuous practice of policy discontinuity. Well, because we didn't initiate it, and so let's not say much about it or something. But they have not said anything about it, and so in their manifesto that they launched recently towards 2020 elections, I read the manifesto, and they've still been silent about it. I'll not blame them that much. NDC comes in to launch its manifesto, the political party that initiated the process. The manifesto itself was silent. In fact, about 99.9% silent about the constitutional review process. It was only a small aspect of the manifesto said, under the section on parliamentary independence and accountability. They said that we are going to revisit the constitution review process, and we are going to revisit the constitution review commissions. They didn't even say commission. They said constitution review committee. And I'm saying that they themselves, are they not familiar with what they did? There's a difference between a commission and a committee. But they said in their manifesto that we're going to look at the Constitution Review Committee's report that recommended recommended that we take a second look at the appointment of ministers from Parliament and all that. I said, but is that the only thing? You spent the whole period and all our resources to do a constitution review process, and then you have a huge document, and you are telling us that it is only one proposal that you want to look at. And then when I was talking about this, somebody drew my attention that President Mahama in their manifesto launch said that it was the NDC that introduced the constitution review process, and so they will bring it back when they get power, in 2020. But I kept asking myself, which one should I take serious? The one encapsulated in the manifesto, or the one spoken during the manifesto, launch? I think that if you are serious, if you want somebody to demand accountability or hold you to what you say, you should first of all capture what you said in the books, and then also speak it. But tomorrow, if we don't find it in the manifesto copiously written, it doesn't show. that then you are truthful to it. And so, you see, for me, I'm not interested in everything that they have said in their manifesto. What I'm interested in is the fundamental law, the fact that the fundamental law of the land and the need for its review found no space in whatever they've written, by way of their manifesto. And you see, you can have all the flowery ideas. You can promise all you can. But the point is that if you have a constitution like the 1992 constitution, it will work to undermine the achievement of all the promises that you say, or it will make it difficult for you to achieve, many of the things that you said you want to do. And so I'm not interested in all that they've said. And the other bit, you see, they've said so many things. If they've been totalitarian in their promises, promising to fix every aspect of our lives. Everything that affects us, they will do it. But we know the history of Ghana's Fourth Republic show that it is not everything that they say they will do that they are able to do. And also, even those that they do, sometimes they do it not with their soul in it. As in, they just tick the box just so that you can be able to market yourself politically. And so they will just tell, well, we said we're going to do this, we've done it. And so I'm talking about the campaign achievements, okay? Campaign achievements rather than substantive achievements. See, campaign achievements are the kind of roads that you construct in 3 days. You see, you construct a road today, you asphalt it and put street lights on it today, simply because there's going to be a by-election, for instance. Then after 6 months, it deteriorates and all that. I mean, these are taking achievements that ticks the boxes. But if you are really serious as a nation, our politicians should simply identify 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just 5 areas, 5 issues you want to deal with. Deal with them and deal with them very well.
You think they promise too much?
They say too much, knowing they can't do all. Okay, so let President Nana Akufo-Addo focus on only free SHS. Okay, and ensure that it is not only free, but it's also quality. Okay, focusing on education, and let them put in place mechanisms and measures that will ensure that as you are increasing the number of students at the SHS level, it will have a corresponding impact on what happens at the tertiary level. My class size used to be 1,500. No new lecture hall has been built, and you can imagine, you can expect that with free SHS, it's going to move away from 1,500 to something else. Okay, so let him focus on only education, do it well, and say that, look, we have too many traffic, on our roads, and so we said we're going to do rail lines. Okay, let us also do it and achieve it concretely, in concrete terms. Do it, and then maybe they said they have vanished doom so. Let us ensure that Ghanaians would never have doom so again. 3, maybe add a 4th one to it. Let there be truly 1 district, 1 factory. You do this for, and you tell Ghanaians, look, I told you I was going to do only 4 things, and I've done them very well. So give me another 4-year mandate. Then we'll give you another 4-year mandate to come and do just 4 things. Afterwards, you get out of the scene. Another person comes, you also identify 4 or 5 things that can be done very well.
We table issues relating to the arts and entertainment for a riveting discussion, of course, without fear nor favor.
The question the presenter asked them was a dumb question. You need to speak the fact and move.
Varied views. We agree to disagree.
So I would disagree with everything you said. I think that he's a smart guy. I think what he did.
No, but I also said he's a smart guy.
Yeah.
I guess that I'm waiting for the what next.
Yeah, I don't think that we have to wait for what next.
It sometimes gets confrontational, but that's the beauty of the game.
Today you are denying funny face. It's not my brother. Today you are denying funny face. I don't know him. You don't know funny face. It's not my brother. You don't know funny face.
It's a package. We meet, we sit, we dialogue, we learn, we progress. My name is Benefo Huabin Abrantepa, a proud blogger, and this is my forum.
Welcome back. This is Ghana's Election Desk, and we are speaking to Professor Ransford Gyampo. Don't you think that, in as much as you want to focus on maybe few key things so that you can do it and do it well, the Ghanaian populace will be seeing it as you doing very little when you could have done more? I mean, Professor Atamil's late former president, we could say he was doing something like that, and then his opponents termed as Dr. Doolittle.
No. The point is this. You see, it's about politicians thrive on public ignorance.
Okay.
Okay. What I'm telling you, doesn't it make sense to you? Which one would you do? Spreading knowing that you don't even have the resources, the duration of your. You see, up till now, they are still commissioning projects. Muhammad did the same thing. There's a project that I'm told he did a short curtain ceremony on 5th December 2016, 2 days into election. President Akufo-Addo is also going about cutting sword. So ask yourself, what were they doing right from day one? The point is that you've promised so many things, but you can't do all. And we know. Okay, we know. So if you have a leader who is honest, he comes out to say that, my people, we've been saying all these things, but we don't put our soul in them. And so we want to do only few and then do them well. Okay, see, there are so many projects that were introduced or they were done by previous regimes since 1992 that today we can't find them. They have not lasted beyond those who introduced them because they just implemented them to tick the boxes. But Kwame Nkrumah did the motorway project for Ghana and he had posterity in mind. So if you introduce a project that would not last after your regime, then it's no project. So let there be a project that will put our soul in it. You do it and you do it very well. Few of them. That is what will bring about development. But to promise everything, knowing that you just be ticking the boxes in terms of touting your accomplishment or you can't do all, does not bring about development.
You stated something that the politicians thrive on public ignorance. How do you fix that?
Yeah, but because they know you don't know. They know you have not traveled before. They know you haven't traveled before. We don't know what pertains elsewhere. Huh? You don't know. When I was schooling in the US, I think they gave me scholarship. The first money that they gave to me, I remember when I got to my apartment, the first tranche of money that they gave to me, I went to buy a few things, including a bucket. Okay, bucket. And after bathing, I fetched water into the bucket and I put it in the kitchen. So in the washroom. So my Professor Pearl Robinson came to me, Ransford, how are you? I'm fine. How did you use the money? I said, I bought a bucket. And so she asked, so what are you doing with the bucket? I said, Professor, you don't know. You don't know what a bucket is meant for. I didn't mind her. Then we're having conversation. Then she asked again, what are you doing with the bucket? I thought she was bothering. I said, Prof, don't interesting. I fetched water in the bucket. If the water is not coming, I'll use it to bath. He said, I've been here. I was born here. I'm 60 years old. The water would always flow. It has never stopped flowing. So return the bucket. And when I returned it, the people were eager to collect it back. You Ghana here, if you return, the goods sold are not refundable. And all that. So my point is that then elsewhere, water would always flow. But here, politicians know. We've been made to believe that it is okay to live without water for 1 week. Or some people have not seen water before. Some children haven't seen regular water flowing through taps before. And we are ignorant about what happens elsewhere. And so it is fine. And that's, politicians feed on our ignorance. If they know, okay, they know we know, they'll do it. Okay, when we all got united and kicked against their effort to construct another chamber for parliament, what happened? You understand? So my point is that until we are enlightened. You see, because they feed on public ignorance, they are all not interested in resourcing the organization that would ensure that we reduce public ignorance. So you see, from 1992 up to now, the NCCE has continued to complain about lack of funding. And I'm saying that politicians would not resource you for you to deal with public ignorance. They won't do it, because the day we all become knowledgeable, the typical Ghanaian politician would have no role to play in our politics.
So I think it's intentional.
Well, if it is not intentional, let them prove me wrong. Because I'm saying from 1992, okay, I've studied the budget of the NCC. It appears the current government is doing well by increasing or by giving them more. But the more that is being given is not enough to enable them to do anything meaningful and all that. And so, you see, one of the challenges or one of the features of every development country is public ignorance. See, the kind of ignorance that comes back to fight even good programs meant for the people. Okay, so you are thinking about fighting COVID, and because of ignorance, people are saying that you don't know what you are talking about and that COVID is for certain elites. Okay, you are fighting for young people in Ghana. You are fighting for young people's empowerment in Ghana. And the very people you are fighting for, they turn around to fight you. You're talking about gerontocracy. When we talk about gerontocracy, we are talking about the belief that wisdom is only in the gray hair. People who are tired, people who have paid their dues already, people who have served the nation already, and now they are old, they are aged, they have diabetes, they have high blood pressure, they are supposed to be taking their medication, and they are supposed to be taking care of their grandchildren. We go and bring them to office and say they should govern. And then we leave young people, aside. We reduce their role as food soldiers. You talk about this, and the young people you are empowering to be able to take their rightful place in politics, they will rather insult. Look at our traditional system of governance. In our traditional system of governance, you see, go and look at the qualifications for selecting a chief. One of the qualifications for selecting a chief was physique and manliness. Why? Because they know that the chief is supposed to be the leader of the local Asafo company. We borrowed that idea. That's why we say our president should be the commander-in-chief of the Ghana Armed Forces. Okay, in the traditional setting, and those of us who read the Bible or who are Christians, we know that in biblical times, chiefs were appointed at tender ages of 8, 15, 11, 12. How did they govern? They governed because they had council of elders, okay, in the palace, whose advice, whose experience that they shared through their advice shaped how they will have to govern. They sat on the laps of the council of elders. So you see, one of the reasons why a chief could be deposed or could be destood was if he went contrary to the advice of the council of elders. If you are misbehaving, they'll tell, now Betoya, you came to meet us here. Okay, and they have the experience. You see, they have the wisdom, they have the brains, they have the experience, but they don't have the strength. So they sit behind, they offer their laps, the chiefs sit on, and then they advise. But look at us. Now we are saying that the elders, the aged, who must be behind the scenes and advise, they must govern. And then young people, we continue to describe them as incompetent, inexperienced, and all that. You see, if a young person is incompetent and inexperienced to determine who must lead, then he must be competent and experienced to govern. If he is wise enough to determine who must govern, then he should be able to govern himself. Beyond that, we have several young people who are accomplished in their prime ages. Okay, now they have the energy. Now they have the zeal that can be harnessed for national development. Who use them? Who wait till when they are tired and they are on pension and they are retirement, when they are on their way to the grave. That's when we would want to bring them on. We talk about this just to be able to empower you. Emmanuel Macron became president in France at the age of 39. In Ghana, he wouldn't have qualified to become a president. You say this to the Ghanaian young people, and because of ignorance, they themselves fight you. So you see, we'll have a lot of work to do to deal with public ignorance. It's a feature of a developing country. But we do not pander to it. That, oh, well, it's our feature, and so let us behave like that. There are proactive interventions that must be put in place to deal with it. One of the interventions is to have bodies like NCC, properly resourced to be able to deal with it. But politicians know that if you resource NCC, they will do a good job. If they do a good job, there will be no public ignorance. Without public ignorance, many politicians will have no job in Ghana.
Wow, okay. There's a raging public debate about the legalization of the Okada system. I mean, there've also been calls for not legalizing, but regulating it like some commercial hailing systems like the Uber and co. What's your take on it?
You see, I told you that I'm not interested in the manifesto contents and some of these things. But you see, this is so petty. It's not something that should occupy our attention as a nation, so that the whole nation, for a period of 1 week or two, we are talking about Okada and all that. I think that Okada, if it is not lawful, if it is illegal, it is illegal. As you can see, me myself, I'm a motor rider, and there's been several times that you go in somewhere, you saw the traffic, you parked your car, and then you sat behind an Okada and all that. But if there is a law that does not allow it, so be it. If we say that Okada has come to stay, and so we should let it be part of us, then it should be properly regulated. I agree. But if another political party says that, well, we would not even regulate Okada, but we would bring one Okada for one VW or Okada for a car, and we would give all Okada riders vehicles to we lease it to them so that they can be paid. They should also be mindful that you are going to have a lot of traffic in the system, traffic jam in the system. But at the end of the day, it's about unemployment. Okada came in to fill a certain lacuna of lack of jobs. Okay, there isn't anybody who works at a bank who say that I don't want to work at the bank and I want to go and ride Okada. I have people that sometimes I call. I mean, if I cannot drive, they will bring their bike. If I cannot drive, I don't want to ride my own motorbike to town. You call them. I have a friend, 2 of them. They'll come and pick you. And if they were teachers like me, they will not stop. They will not quit teaching. If they had jobs at the government, ministries, departments, and agencies, they will not be riding Okada. And so my point is that politicians, that's why I say it's trivial. They should be thinking about the bigger picture of unemployment and see how they can generate some of these linkages that sets up employment for people so that they can have decent employment and all that. So it's not about Okada or not Okada. Let's look at how we can decently engage people by creating decent jobs for them.
Okay, I forgot to ask this when we were talking about the COVID and the campaign. Do you think the mode of campaigning, now that we're not going according to the traditional where the rally and everything is simple?
Well, initially it was my view that COVID would affect voter turnout, but it appears that what is happening in reality or practically on the ground show that Ghanaians may possibly defy COVID and still show up, out there to go and vote. And you can see it clearly. We are going to the churches. We are going to the markets. We are doing crusades. We are doing everything and all that. So I think that you may have 1 or 2, you may have a few chunk of the population who may want to approach the whole voting process with some trepidation and caution and all that. But I think from what I see, COVID would not hinder many people who really want to exercise their franchise. It will not prevent them. They will do it.
Thank you for your time with us on Ghana's Election Desk. What are your last words?
Well, there's going to be election 2020. This is going to be the 8th time we've held elections. I think we have done well for ourselves as an electoral democracy, as a transitional democracy. I call on all Ghanaians to ensure that democracy has come to stay. Every election is unique in its own right. Let this election that promises, that is also unique, contribute to our quest for democratic advancement. I call on young people to play a decent role in the process. They shouldn't allow themselves to be used by any politician to foment violence. I also call on politicians to be civil and decorous in their campaign, and the campaign should be on issues and not on insults and things that plays on the emotional keyboards of Ghanaians. May the candidates or may the aspirants with good policy win, and may Ghana ultimately be the winner.
Okay, thank you so much, Prof. Ransford Gyampo. That's all time would allow us. You've been watching Ghana Web's Election Desk. We've been speaking to the head of the Youth Bridge Research Institute, also the associate professor at the Political Science Department of University of Ghana, in the person of Professor Ransford Gyampo. He said a lot, and going to the elections, we see how things pan out. One thing that stood out for me is about what he said about politicians thriving on public ignorance and them not financing or investing properly in bodies that will enlighten the electorate, such as the NCCE. My name is Lord Harisidro Asare. Join us for our next edition.